The departure board flickered above me, displaying Flight 847 to Barcelona in bold yellow letters. Boarding, it announced, as families wheeled their suitcases past my frozen form. I clutched my phone, staring at the text message that had shattered my world just 20 minutes ago. Eleanor, we've decided you can't come on the trip. Take the bus home. We'll talk when we return. Mum. My parents, my younger brother Jake, and my twin cousins were somewhere in this terminal right now. Probably already through security, heading toward their dream vacation. The family vacation I'd helped plan for 6 months. The vacation I'd saved for by working double shifts at the campus bookstore. The vacation that was supposed to celebrate my college graduation. I looked down at my boarding pass for the same flight, printed with the confirmation code I'd memorized. BR 4789. My name was right there in black ink. Eleanor Martinez, seat 14A. But apparently, my family had different plans. The morning had started normally. We'd piled into Dad's SUV at 5 a.m, everyone excited and chattering about the itinerary. Jake complained about the early hour while scrolling through Barcelona restaurant reviews. My cousins, twins Emma and Lily, debated whether to visit Park Güell first, or the Gothic Quarter. Mum fussed over the travel documents, checking our passports for the 5th time. I'd been the planner. I'd researched every museum, mapped every walking route, translated key Spanish phrases for everyone. I'd even convinced them to splurge on the hotel with the rooftop pool overlooking the Mediterranean. But as we'd approached the terminal, Dad's phone rang. Uncle Richard's voice had filled the car through the speakers, his tone sharp with authority. "Thomas, we need to talk. Family meeting, before the flight." My stomach had twisted. Uncle Richard only used that tone when someone was in serious trouble. At the airport, they'd asked me to wait with the luggage while they stepped aside for a quick conversation. I'd watched through the glass doors as the family circle formed. My parents, my uncle and aunt, even Jake and the twins. Everyone except me. When they returned, Mum's face was stone-cold professional. The same expression she used when firing employees at her marketing firm. "Eleanor, there's been a change of plans." "What kind of change?" I'd asked, though the ice in my veins already knew. "You won't be joining us on this trip," Dad had said, avoiding my eyes. "Something has come to our attention that we need to address as a family when we return." "What are you talking about? I am family." Uncle Richard had stepped forward, his expensive suit making him look like a prosecutor. "We found out about your little side business, Eleanor, the tutoring scam you've been running at college." My mouth had dropped open. Tutoring scam? I help students with their essays and presentations. It's completely legitimate. "For $200 per assignment," my Aunt Patricia had hissed. "That's academic fraud, Eleanor. You're helping them cheat." "I'm helping them improve their writing skills. I don't write their papers. I teach them how to write better." But Uncle Richard had already made up his mind. "We can't have this kind of dishonesty in our family, especially not on a trip that's supposed to celebrate your education. The irony is staggering. This is insane," I'd protested, looking desperately at my parents. "Mom, Dad, you know me. I would never help anyone cheat. Tell them." But my parents had stood silent, their faces etched with disappointment. "We trusted you, Eleanor," Mum had said finally. "But Richard showed us the screenshots from your laptop, the advertisements, the payment requests. We can't ignore evidence." "What screenshots? When did you go through my laptop?" "When you left it open last week during Sunday dinner," Jake had said quietly, guilt flickering across his face. Uncle Richard saw the messages. The betrayal had hit me like a physical blow. My own brother had been spying on me. My uncle had violated my privacy. And my parents had believed the worst without even asking for my side of the story. "The decision is made," Uncle Richard had announced. "We've already spoken to the airline. Your seat has been given to standby passengers. Take the bus home, think about your choices, and we'll discuss this properly when we return. That's when Mum had sent the text message, making it official. Making it final. Now I stood alone in Terminal B, watching gate announcements for other people's dreams while my family prepared to live mine without me. Travellers rushed past with excited voices and rolling luggage, heading toward adventures I'd never share. My phone buzzed with another text from Jake. "I'm sorry, Eleanor, I didn't think it would go this far. Uncle Richard convinced everyone it was serious. Maybe you can join us later in the week." I deleted the message without responding. There would be no later in the week. There would be no reconciliation dinner in Barcelona. There would be no sunset photos on the hotel rooftop or family tours through the Sagrada Familia. My hands shook as I opened my banking app. $2,847 in my checking account, money I'd saved specifically for this trip. Money that was supposed to buy flamenco show tickets and expensive paella dinners and souvenirs for friends back home. But as I stared at that number, something shifted inside my chest. A spark of defiance replaced the crushing disappointment. They wanted to abandon me? Fine. They wanted to exclude me from the family vacation, their choice, but I didn't have to go home and wait for their return like a scolded child. I didn't have to spend the next 10 days wallowing in self-pity while they posted Instagram photos of Spanish beaches and Gothic cathedrals. I walked to the departure board and scanned the international flights. Paris, Rome, London, Dublin, Amsterdam, all leaving within the next 3 hours, all representing possibilities my family had never considered for me. My finger traced down the list until it stopped on one destination that made my heart race. Flight 623 to Dublin, Ireland. Boarding in 40 minutes. Seat availability. Yes, I'd always dreamed of Ireland, the green countryside, the ancient castles, the friendly pubs where strangers became friends over pints of Guinness. It was supposed to be my solo trip after graduation, but I'd sacrificed it to join the family vacation instead. Well, now I could have both independence and adventure. I walked straight to the airline counter, my spine straightening with each step. The ticket agent, a kind-looking woman with silver hair, smiled as I approached. "How can I help you today, dear?" "I'd like to book a flight to Dublin, the one leaving in 40 minutes. "Certainly. Will this be round trip?" I paused, considering the question. Round trip implied I'd be coming back to the same life, the same family dynamics, the same role as the responsible daughter who could be dismissed and excluded at will. "One way," I said firmly. "Just one way." As she processed my booking, I felt the first genuine smile I'd worn all morning spread across my face. My parents thought they were teaching me a lesson about consequences. Instead, they were about to learn that their daughter was far braver than they'd ever imagined. The boarding pass felt warm in my palm as I walked toward Gate 12. Eleanor Martinez, 22C, window seat, departing 11:35 a.m. In 37 minutes, I'd be airborne while my family settled into their Barcelona-bound aircraft 3 gates away. My phone buzzed incessantly. 7 missed calls from Mum, 4 from Dad, 12 texts from Jake ranging from panic to pleading. I switched it to airplane mode and dropped it into my carry-on bag. Their crisis was no longer my emergency. At the gate, I purchased a small notebook and pen from the newsstand. If I was starting a new life, I needed to document this moment. The first entry wrote itself. Day 1. Abandoned at airport by family over false accusations. Boarded flight 623 to Dublin, instead of going home like an obedient child. Scared, but excited. This is either the bravest thing I've ever done, or the stupidest. The boarding announcement crackled through the speakers. All passengers, flight 623 with service to Dublin, Ireland, now boarding all rows. I joined the line behind an elderly couple speaking Irish accents, their conversation peppered with warm laughter. The woman noticed my nervous energy. "First time to Ireland, love?" she asked kindly. First time anywhere alone, I admitted. Ah, well then, you're in for a treat. Ireland welcomes solo travellers like family. You'll see. Her husband nodded enthusiastically. Make sure you visit the cliffs of Moher. Changed my life when I was your age, those cliffs did. As we shuffled forward, I realised I had no hotel reservations, no itinerary, no plan beyond landing in Dublin. The practical part of my brain, the part that had organised everyone else's lives for years, began to panic. But a stronger voice whispered that planning had gotten me abandoned at an airport. Maybe spontaneity would serve me better. I settled into my window seat and opened the notebook again. Goals for Ireland. 1. Don't die. 2. Find somewhere to sleep. 3. Prove I can survive without family approval. 4. Figure out what I actually want from life. The plane taxied toward the runway as my phone vibrated one final time before takeoff. A text from Uncle Richard had somehow come through. Eleanor, this childish tantrum needs to stop. Your parents are worried sick. Come home immediately. I deleted it and smiled as the engines roared to life. 6 hours later, Dublin's green landscape appeared below the clouds. The late afternoon sun painted the countryside in golden light, and I pressed my face against the window like a child seeing magic for the first time. At Dublin Airport, I exchanged my remaining dollars for euros and bought a SIM card for my phone. The young clerk, probably my age, had brilliant red hair and freckles. American, here for the crack, he asked cheerfully. The what? The crack. The fun, the good times. That's what Americans usually come looking for. I considered his question seriously. I'm here because my family threw me away and I decided not to land in their trash bin. His eyebrow shot up. Bloody hell, that's dark. But also brilliant. Good on you for choosing your own adventure. He handed me a small map of Dublin along with the phone. Start with Temple Bar District if you want to meet people. Grafton Street if you want to shop. But if you really want to find yourself, take the bus to Howth Head tomorrow. The cliff walk will sort your head right out. I thanked him and headed toward the city centre bus. During the 30-minute ride, I called 3 hostels from the phone book I'd grabbed at the information desk. The first 2 were booked solid, but Trinity Backpackers had a bed in a 4-person female dorm for €25 per night. How many nights will you be staying? The receptionist asked. I looked out the bus window at the unfamiliar street sliding past. I honestly don't know. Not so, bother, love, we'll sort you day by day. Trinity Backpackers occupied a narrow building squeezed between a used bookstore and a traditional Irish pub. The lobby smelled like coffee and adventure stories. My roommates were a German photography student named Ingrid, an Australian gap year traveller called Zoe, and a quiet French girl, Amélie, who was writing a novel about Dublin's literary ghosts. What brings you to Ireland? Ingrid asked as I unpacked my single suitcase. Family drama, I said simply. I needed to disappear for a while. The best reason? Zoe nodded approvingly. Running towards something is always better than running away from something, but sometimes they're the same thing, yeah? That evening, I joined my roommates at O'Sullivan's pub next door. The atmosphere buzzed with conversations in 6 different languages, and live traditional Irish music filled the spaces between laughter. I ordered fish and chips and my first legal pint of Guinness. To Eleanor, Amélie raised her glass in a toast, to choosing adventure over expectation. As we clinked glasses, my phone vibrated with international notifications. My family had discovered my Dublin location through my credit card usage. The messages range from fury to panic. Mum, Eleanor, Patricia Martinez, you get on a plane home right now. Dad, this has gone too far. We're wiring money for a return ticket. Jake, everyone's freaking out. Uncle Richard is calling the embassy. Please, just call us. I showed the messages to my new friends. Ingrid whistled low. Your family sounds intense. Also, controlling. They're not bad people, I defended automatically, then caught myself. Actually, maybe they are. I've never really examined it before. Zoe leaned forward, her dark eyes serious. Eleanor, can I ask you something? When was the last time you made a major decision without considering what your family wanted first? I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Exactly, she said gently. That's not healthy, mate. You're 22, not 12. I typed a single response to the family group chat. I'm safe. I'm staying in Ireland for a while. I'll contact you when I'm ready. Don't send money or involve embassies. This is my choice. Then I turned off my phone completely. How does it feel? Amelie asked, watching me power down the device. I took a long sip of Guinness and looked around the pub at the faces of strangers who'd welcome me without judgment, condition, or expectation. Terrifying, I admitted, and absolutely perfect. The music swelled around us, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe completely. Tomorrow, I would climb those cliffs at Howth Head. Tomorrow, I would start figuring out who Eleanor Martinez was when nobody was telling her who to be. But tonight, I was exactly where I belonged. 3 weeks into my Dublin adventure, I sat on the edge of Howth Head, legs dangling over the cliff face, as waves crashed against the rocks below. The wind whipped my hair into knots, but I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I was writing something purely for myself. My notebook had evolved from desperate journal entries into something deeper. Stories. Real stories about the people I'd met, the conversations that had changed my perspective, the moments when I'd surprised myself with my own courage. Paddy O'Brien, the 70-year-old lighthouse keeper I'd interviewed last week, had read one of my pieces over tea and shortbread. You've got the gift, Eleanor, he'd said seriously. Not just for writing, but for seeing people's truth. That's rare. His words echoed in my mind as I wrote about Mrs. Flanagan, the widow who ran the flower stall near Trinity College. She'd shared her story of rebuilding her life after her husband's death, starting her business at age 65 with nothing but determination and a borrowed cart. Fear is just excitement wearing a disguise, she told me yesterday morning as I helped her arrange daffodils. The trick is learning to recognise the costume. I closed the notebook and checked my phone. 17 missed calls from my family in the past 3 days. They'd escalated their tactics after I'd refused the emergency return ticket Dad had purchased. Uncle Richard had somehow obtained the hostel's number and called twice daily until the manager politely told him to stop harassing their guests. But scattered between the family chaos were other messages. Responses to the travel blog I'd started on a whim, documenting my Irish experience. Readers from around the world were sharing their own stories of family conflict and personal discovery. The blog had gained 3,000 followers in 2 weeks. One message stood out from the rest. Hi Eleanor, I'm Katie Sullivan, content editor at Wanderlust magazine. I've been following your Dublin blog, and we'd love to discuss a freelance opportunity. Your voice is exactly what we need for our solo stories series. Are you available for a call this week? My hands trembled as I read it twice. Wanderlust magazine. The publication I'd read religiously throughout college, dreaming of seeing my byline in their pages someday. I climbed down from the cliffs and caught the bus back to Dublin city centre, my mind racing with possibilities. At the hostel, I found Zoe in the common room, video chatting with her parents in Sydney. Guess what just happened? I whispered, showing her the email. She shrieked loud enough to startle her parents on screen. Eleanor got offered a writing gig with Wanderlust magazine, she announced to her family. The travel magazine? Her mother's voice carried through the laptop speakers. That's brilliant! Eleanor, you should be so proud. The casual acceptance from Zoe's family struck me. No interrogation about my qualifications, no warnings about unrealistic expectations, just pure excitement for my opportunity. The contrast with my own family's typical response felt stark. I scheduled the call with Katie Sullivan for the following morning. That evening, I powered on my phone long enough to send one message to the family group chat. I've been offered a freelance writing position with a major travel magazine. This is what I'm capable of when you're not telling me I'm not good enough. Still not ready to talk, but wanted you to know I'm not just surviving, I am thriving. The responses came immediately. Mum, Eleanor, this is wonderful, but you need to come home and pursue opportunities here where we can support you. Dad, very proud, but Ireland isn't practical long term. Let's discuss this properly in person. Uncle Richard, don't let temporary success cloud your judgment about responsibility and family obligations. Jake was the only one who simply wrote, "That's amazing, Elle. You deserve this." I turned the phone off again without responding. The next morning, Katie Sullivan's warm Irish accent crackled through the video call. She sat in what looked like a bustling Dublin office, her curly red hair barely contained by a colourful headband. "Eleanor, your writing captures something we've been missing. Authentic vulnerability combined with sharp observation. The piece about the lighthouse keeper especially resonated with our readers." "Thank you. I wasn't sure if personal storytelling was appropriate for travel writing." Personal storytelling is travel writing when done well. We'd like to offer you a 3-month contract to cover solo travel stories across Ireland. Full expenses paid, plus a generous per article fee. You'd be based here in Dublin, but travelling throughout the country. My heart hammered against my ribs. 3 months? With potential for extension if the series performs well. Are you interested? Yes, I said without hesitation. Absolutely yes. After we ended the call, I sat staring at my laptop screen, hardly believing the conversation had actually happened. In 3 weeks, I'd gone from abandoned daughter to published travel writer with a paying contract. Ingrid found me in the hostel kitchen 20 minutes later, still processing the news over a cup of coffee. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she observed, settling down across from me. "I think I have. The ghost of who I used to be." I explained about the job offer, the family pressure, the impossible choice between professional opportunity and family approval. "Why is it impossible?" Ingrid asked practically. "You take the job, you prove yourself, you become financially independent, then you deal with your family from a position of strength rather than dependence." "But what if they disown me completely?" "Eleanor, they abandoned you at an airport over a misunderstanding. How much worse could complete disownment actually be?" Her bluntness stung, but it also clarified something I'd been avoiding. My family's love had always come with conditions: academic achievement, career choices they approved of, decisions that prioritized their comfort over my growth. Maybe losing that conditional love would create space for something healthier. That afternoon, I walked to the Wanderlust magazine offices and signed my first professional writing contract. The editor-in-chief, a sharp-eyed woman named Siobhan, shook my hand with genuine warmth. "We believe in your potential, Eleanor. Don't let anyone convince you to play smaller than you are." As I left the office building, contract in hand, I passed a shop window displaying postcards of Irish landscapes. On impulse, I bought one showing the cliffs of Moher and wrote a single message on the back. "Dear family, I am exactly where I belong. Love, Eleanor." I addressed it to our family home and dropped it in the nearest postbox. Walking back toward the hostel through Dublin's busy streets, I felt something shift in my chest. The desperate need for their approval was fading, replaced by something steadier. Respect for my own judgment. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown Irish number. "Eleanor, this is Paddy from the Lighthouse. Heard about your magazine job from Mrs. Flanagan. All of Dublin's cheering for you, love. Come by for tea when you're ready to hear stories about the Western Coast. I've got contacts who will help with your research." I smiled and tucked the phone away. I was building a new kind of family here, one that celebrated my successes instead of fearing them. 2 months later, I stood in the lobby of Dublin's Conrad Hotel, wearing a navy blazer I'd bought for the occasion. Today wasn't just any day. It was the launch event for Wanderlust magazine's Solo Stories series, featuring my work as the cover story. My hand shook slightly as I held the glossy magazine with my byline printed in bold letters across the front. The elevator doors opened and my heart stopped. My entire family stepped out into the lobby. Mum, Dad, Jake, Uncle Richard, Aunt Patricia and the twins. They'd flown to Dublin without warning, tracking me down through the magazine's press release that mentioned the event. "Eleanor," Mum said, her voice carefully controlled, "we need to talk." "How did you find me?" Uncle Richard stepped forward, his expression stern. "Your face is plastered across international magazine covers. Did you think we wouldn't notice our daughter making a spectacle of herself?" "Making a spectacle?" I held up the magazine. "This is called success, Uncle Richard. Maybe you should try recognizing it." Dad's voice was gentler but equally frustrated. "Eleanor, this has gone on long enough. You've made your point. It's time to come home and handle this situation properly." "Handle what situation? You mean the tutoring accusations that were completely false?" Silence stretched between us. Jake shifted uncomfortably, and I caught something guilty in his expression. "Jake," I said slowly, "what aren't you telling me?" He glanced at Uncle Richard, who gave him a sharp, warning look, but Jake's resolve crumbled. "Eleanor, I need to tell you something. The screenshots Uncle Richard showed everyone, he took them out of context. He made it look like you were helping students cheat, but I saw the original conversations. You were just editing their work and teaching them writing techniques." Uncle Richard's face flushed red. "Jake, that's enough." "No, it's not enough." Jake's voice rose, drawing stares from other hotel guests. "I've felt guilty for 2 months. Eleanor, I tried to tell them the truth after you left, but Uncle Richard convinced them you were manipulating me too." The lobby fell silent except for the sound of my mother's sharp intake of breath. "Richard," she said slowly, "is this true?" "The principle remains the same," Uncle Richard said defensively. "Eleanor was profiting from other students' academic desperation. The ethics are questionable, regardless of the technical details." "The ethics?" I laughed, but there was no humour in it. "Let's talk about ethics, Uncle Richard. You violated my privacy, manipulated evidence to make me look guilty, convinced my parents to abandon me at an airport, and then spent 2 months trying to sabotage my independence. And you want to lecture me about ethics?" Aunt Patricia touched her husband's arm uncertainly. "Richard, if Eleanor wasn't actually helping students cheat, she was still taking advantage of... I was helping students improve their writing skills." My voice echoed through the lobby. "I was tutoring them legitimately, charging fair rates for my expertise, and building a business based on my talents. Everything you taught me was impossible for someone like me." The magazine event coordinator approached our group nervously. "Miss Martinez, the panel is about to begin. Are you ready?" I looked at my family, then at the magazine in my hands, then at the conference room where successful writers and travel industry professionals were gathering to discuss my work. "Actually, I'd like my family to attend the panel. They should hear what I've accomplished." For the next hour, I sat on stage alongside Katie Sullivan and 2 other travel writers, discussing the impact of solo travel on personal growth. I spoke about overcoming family expectations, finding authentic voice through storytelling, and building independence through professional achievement. Eleanor's series has resonated with readers precisely because it captures that universal struggle between family loyalty and personal authenticity, Katie explained to the audience. Her writing doesn't shy away from difficult truths about family dynamics while maintaining compassion for all perspectives. During the Q&A session, an audience member asked, "What advice would you give to young writers whose families don't support their career choices?" I looked directly at my family in the front row. I'd tell them that sometimes the people who love you most are also the most afraid of losing you to your own success. But their fear doesn't make your dreams less valid. Sometimes you have to prove to yourself first and to them second that you're capable of more than they imagined. After the panel, my family waited for me in the hotel restaurant. The atmosphere was different now, less confrontational, more uncertain. Mum spoke first. "Eleanor, we owe you an apology. Multiple apologies. We let Richard's concerns override our faith in your character," Dad added quietly. "That was wrong." Uncle Richard remained silent, his jaw tight with stubborn pride. "I want to understand something," I said, sitting across from them. Why was it easier to believe I was a cheater than to believe I was successful? The question hung in the air. Finally, Mum answered with painful honesty. "Because if you were successful on your own, it meant you didn't need us anymore." "I never stopped needing you," I said softly. "I stopped needing your permission." Jake leaned forward eagerly. "So, does this mean you'll come home?" I smiled and pulled out a contract from my bag. "Actually, Wanderlust just offered me a permanent position as a senior travel correspondent. I'll be based in Dublin, but travelling throughout Europe. I'm accepting it." The silence was deafening. "You're staying in Ireland?" Mum whispered. "I'm building a life here. A life where my choices are respected, my talents are valued, and my success is celebrated instead of feared." Uncle Richard finally spoke, his voice bitter. "So you're abandoning your family permanently over a misunderstanding?" "No, Uncle Richard. I'm choosing my happiness over your control. There's a difference." I stood up and looked around the table. "You're all welcome to visit me here. You're welcome to be part of this new life I'm building. But I won't be returning to the old dynamic where my dreams were subject to committee approval." Mum's eyes filled with tears. "We just wanted to protect you." "I know, but I've learned to protect myself. And it turns out I'm much stronger than any of us realised." 6 months later, I published my first book, a memoir about family, forgiveness, and finding courage in the spaces between love and control. The dedication read, "To my Irish family, who taught me that home isn't where you're from, but where you're brave enough to bloom." The book became a bestseller. My parents visited Dublin for the launch party, and this time, Uncle Richard stayed home. Some stories end with reconciliation. Mine ended with something better: self-respect and the knowledge that I could survive anything, even the loss of conditional love. I'd found my voice, and nothing could silence it again.